Sarah Poff, the multimedia storyteller, and I'm just here for another painting. This one is called Lovebirds. So I think you will enjoy it. I enjoyed painting it. So let's just get started with that lovebird painting. All right, so I have a canvas. I'm doing it in acrylic. This is just one of those, canvas boards you can buy that don't cost a lot. On this one, we really just need red and white, and then there's the black. And I have just a teeny bit of green, which even could be added with a marker later, like a Sharpie or something like that later if you wanted to do that. So I'm going to move this over just in a second here. I just wanted to show it to you. Now what I did is I just painted a heart. Even if you were to evaluate my heart, you would go, oh, well, it's just a teeny bit off. But because those birds are there, it doesn't show up as much. If you would like to take time and, stop the video, go cut some hearts, oh, that's great. This is about me teaching you some things and then you going forward with what you think would be working best for that. All right. Now, what I do is I buy the big acrylics so that I don't have to spend as much money. I just use random brushes, whatever I have. As you can see, they've been well used. I don't have a lot of water. I have just a teeny bit because sometimes the room that I'm painting in is a little dry. I use my Corel plates for this. You can tell there's already been some dry paint there. And so I've got my paint ready for today. And sometimes if I don't get the painting finished, I do like this and tape it on the edges. And that paint will keep pretty good that way for a while. All right. Now I think we're ready to start. So I'm going to think about my center of interest. So my center of interest is right here. So center of interest is usually on a third. If you divide the paper into thirds this way, and then that should be close to the center. So that's what we're going to want to try. I mean, if you want to do it a different way, you're welcome to. This is your painting, but that's just a rule of art that that people generally go by. All right, so I'm going to start with some white here, add a little red in it. Now when you are mixing colors, you want to bring the stronger color, like red, you want to bring that over to, this red over to the white and mix it. If you do it the other way, you tend to make up too much, and it's not, you waste a lot of paint because it's not the color you wished for. So you just bring it kind of there to the side. So now I think about this kind of like a half of an ice cream cone on each side of that heart. See, I can feel the dryness in this room. But we don't want a lot because we want that. We're trying to get this painted in an hour. And if we get too much water on there, we'll want to wait. So let's just keep going. And sometimes I just want to fill it in. I'm going to fill it in with a bigger brush. Part of this is about time. Paint, 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 paint. I sure do like to paint, paint, paint. Paint, 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 paint. I sure do like to paint. Now my college professor always told us, if you want to see how something looks, you back up from it. So if you want to see how this heart looks, you might set it across the room from you. You might have a friend look at it before you get started. All right, although this one heart blends into the next heart until we go totally red on this one. All right, we're about to get that part done. All right, so then what we want to do is we're making the tints of red because we're adding white to it, and then we just gradually get more and more red into it until it's totally red. All right, so I think I'm just going to add a little red, like strong red right here. Just straight red, and then I'm going to just kind of blend that together with some white. And you may decide you want it to be a certain pink color along that tint. Or you may like seeing the mixture of the pink and the white together. Sometimes that brings some really interesting texture to your painting. And if you wanted, this is one of those paintings, if you wanted to, you could make one for several seasons, and you could make different colors for the background. Maybe you really like summer, and so you just add a little bit of more of summer details into it. Now this paintbrush that I'm using is it's a little smaller one. I always like to tell a few stories along the way, or tell why I just, why I do what I do on some of this. This one right here, see how it used to be a bigger, wider paintbrush, but of course children have used it, and they don't, officially you're supposed to only touch the bristles to the canvas or to the watercolor paper, whatever you're painting, but they don't do that. They kind of scrub on the sides, and so therefore these brushes lose their bristles on the side, but I keep them and trim them a little bit, and then I have a smaller paintbrush. So just always trying to think like that, because I like to be able to not spend a lot, but have a lot of fun with my art. I'm just one of those types of people. That's why I try to keep my supply list pretty simple, because I want you to try it. I want you to enjoy doing it. I don't want you to feel like you have to go buy a brush of a certain kind because it makes this kind or that kind. You could do that, sure. Do it if you want, but you don't have to. I'm going to bleed that out in there because I think I like to have just a little bit more pink. And you will find as you watch some of the things I do, the samples are always similar, but they're never exactly alike. I actually find that boring to do, so I change things up a little bit from time to time. And if you go listen to and read about, study the old masters, you'll find out they did the same kind of thing. Red. Now you could change this painting up too. I thought about it is you could have the lovebirds in the middle, and then you could have the children, extended family, or whatever on the sides. You could make it a genealogy kind of painting. That's one of my favorite hobbies. Art history and genealogy, those are my favorite hobbies. And I spend a lot of time with all of them. Right now, I have a friend, I'm so jealous. She has a Revolutionary War ancestor that was born out, I think he was born in Virginia, fought out there in that Revolutionary War, and he moved to Missouri, and he died in Missouri. And he is actually buried in the same county she grew up in. And she didn't even know. I want one of those. Oh, but, I don't have any of those in Missouri. I've searched many a line, and so far I have not found anybody that made it here. We didn't make it, my family didn't make it here till right before the Civil War. Oh, well, you take what you get with some of that. But the story is fascinating. So this would make a good little painting, like the couple here, but then the branches of the family could definitely come out from there. And so as I do this, I'm also going to keep going with the shape of the heart, just making it grow bigger. I sure do like to paint, paint, paint. I sure do like to paint, paint, paint. It sure does make it go faster when I do a little singing. Paint, 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 paint. It sure is fun to paint. Do you have fun Valentine's? Reservations made somewhere? Or someplace fun, someplace romantic? Or sometimes it's just nice to have a night at home. You know, when you're working and busy all the time, take the kids over to Grandma's house and just have a night together at home. Just mixing a little white. I'm catching a little white on the edge of my brush there as I go. I call that loading my brush. You know, some different people call it different things. But I'm loading my brush with multiple colors. There's a little bit of pink that's already mixed up, plus the red and the white. Just a little water there. I dip my brush in. I don't like swirl it around. I just dip. Because we're trying to stay as dry as possible. That way the painting will dry quicker. We're going to use the blow dryer on it here in just a little bit before we go in and put the branches on. Paint, 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 paint. I sure do like to paint. I want to, before I go on, I want to add a little bit more white in there. Okay, it looks like, which happens sometimes, it looks like my brush has picked up maybe some dry paint in it. So I'm going to go over it a little bit more. And sometimes I just like to get it painted in and then, you know, kind of clean up some of the strokes, lighten up the strokes, because the lighter you paint, the less pressure you put on that brush, the less you're going to see those strokes. I learned that from my daddy when I was helping him paint the house. You know, we are an accumulation of what we've learned from many people along the way. And my parents were both teachers, elementary teachers, and so our house was always about learning. It sure was. Didn't matter what you did. It was about learning something. Oh, my southern accent kind of came out a little bit there. I grew up down in southeast Missouri, and would you believe down there we talk a little southern. When I first moved to Independence, they had a little trouble understanding me. Especially when I talked fast, because where I grew up, it was a fast southern, not a slow southern, so there's a difference. Anybody else out there in video land? Have you ever lived in southeast Missouri? they talk about Texas having that whole different country. Well, sometimes I think southeast Missouri is a whole different country than up here. It's interesting how our state has so many different types of landscapes, different types of people, but yet we all merge as Missourians. I think a lot of us have that independent spirit. Because one of the studies I've been doing now is about the Germans that came and the different waves of Germans that came. Came from so many places, so many cultural types of experiences we've had, and yet we've merged together as one country. Kind of cool how our United States is set up. Okay, so I'm getting there. Now, if you wanted it to be darker, I just went with a darker red that was already the color of the paint. If you wanted to, you could go in there and you could add the complementary color to the paint and tone down that if you wanted. I kind of thought it looked like a radiating heart the way this was, the way I did it. Paint, 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 paint. I'm feeling in this corner. Almost there. We're almost there. Getting close. Now I think what I need to do is I want to go back in with a little white in the middle and kind of evening that up there because of where the birds are going to be. I want them to show out nicely. So add just another layer in there. Well, I'm painting upside down for me, so I'm going to just turn this around real quick, see what I think. I think I might like to add just a bit down here. Okay. I think I'm good with the rest of that. Okay, now what I'm going to do next is I'm going to get out my hairdryer, so it's going to get noisy, but we want to get this dried before we start working on the branch. Add a little bit more paint right there. Okay, that's got too much white on it. I don't want that much white there. So what I do instead of stopping and rinsing my brushes out, I just lay them like this to the side. If you have really nice brushes and really special brushes and you're afraid that that might mess them up in the long term, you might not want to do that, but for me, it works, especially when I'm working, trying to work fast. That helps out. this part, what I do is I like to turn my painting like this. So, because I'm better at drawing, I'm going to turn it this way because I'm going to start from down here. I like drawing this direction as opposed to sideways. Sometimes I don't flow as easily. Put my painting on here so you can kind of see. It doesn't quite flow as easy. But I want several branches. And so as I teach with children the basics of trees, because I mostly always taught elementary. So you want a Y. So I'm going to make some Ys. And then I'm going to add some additional Ys. Or I'm going to add a V. Now, is it a straight V? No. It has some curves in it. And so that's kind of the purpose. What I do is I just do a Y, a V, and then just elongate it if I need to, and then just add a few more in. Now, what I did with this is I got me some Sharpies. You can get you a really small paintbrush, but you have to have some more skills to do that sometimes. And sometimes that frustrates a few people who don't have as good as skills with a small paintbrush. I could sit here and do this, but it would take me a while if I were going to do that. So what I do a lot of times is I do Sharpie and then I kind of widen it out with a brush and some black paint. So I'm going to first think about this one right here. I want the branch they're sitting on to be right here within that lighter color so that it has a piece for them to sit. So I might even just do like this. So I'm going to just go ahead and bring this across. And I don't want it to be out where the birds are, so I'm going to be it out here. You know, if I make a mistake like that, there just adds another branch. And then I want to add some other branches into it. Now, some things on some things like this, it seems that people they can practice. You know, you could practice the movement across it if you would like. So then I want to bring this over. Now I want to bring one down from this corner. So I'm going to bring one down like this. I'm still, you know, making some Ys. I don't want to bring them down too far because the center is right here with those birds on it. And then I want to bring another one. I'm not going to bring this bottom one over as far as this one because I got a little carried away there. Like I said, it kind of ebbs and flows just depending on how my hand goes at the moment. So I also find it more fun that way. It's just more fun that way. All right, now I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I want to put the shapes of the birds. My birds are either going to come up into here or they're going to be a little bit smaller than the ones I did on this painting. All right, so I'm going to, and if you wanted to, you could use a pencil on here. Given time span that I have to work with you, I'm just going to go ahead and go with the Sharpie. And sometimes it helps that I've already done one. Plus, I've done a lot of this kind of thing, work in front of a classroom of children. And so sometimes you just go for it. You just go for it. Now, I wanted that bird to lean in a little closer, so I need to go over just a little bit more. Because I wanted him to just touch just a bit. Okay, then I'm going to bring this tail feather out like that. And this one's going to go this way. So that's basically a triangle, but it's kind of tucked up underneath there. Actually, the shape of this bird reminds me of an art project that I did long years ago in about 3rd grade. And when I was going through some of my mom's samples, the teacher who taught that lesson, she actually had a copy from them, and so I actually use that sometimes with my children because you can take those 3 shapes and make all different kinds of birds from that. All different kinds of positions they're in, you know, except for some of the exotic birds, that shape's very similar. All right, so that's the basics of what I want to do. Now I'm going to I think I didn't get my black paint out, so I'm going to do that. Get me some black going here. And like I told you, I try to like use that red, yellow, blue, black, white paint, and I try to buy the big containers. I have noticed that some of the stores have decided lately that they're not necessarily carrying as many of those big containers. Maybe they caught on to what I was doing. I don't know. I've done it for many years because I like mixing my own. So what I'm doing is I'm just going over these with a small brush. And it helps that I don't have to think about the flow of that as much because I've already got the shape going. And then I want to, as the limb, little limbs get into big limbs, what I'm doing is I'm going to thicken it up. And if I added a little bit of water there, be careful when you add some water because it bleeds. If you add too much water, it'll bleed really easy on you. And if you want to later, you could add a little bit of white to some of the edges, just a teeny bit, to make it look a little more dimensional. You might also consider, which I've had really good luck with, is a pencil. Using a pencil to come back in on the sides. The graphite is just enough different than the blackness, but yet it's still got some, blacker tones in it, that it seems to make a pretty good shading. In these kind of paintings, I just go for it with, whatever tools to get the acrylics to get it basically in, and then I use additional tools like Sharpies and pencils and colored pencils to add to some of that. And sometimes when you're painting like this, it is a little bit harder to talk. However, I have been told I have the gift of gab, so maybe, I can do a little as I go. All right, I'm going to start painting these in. I really like having that area in my house where every season, have a couple of basic paintings that stay the same, and then I have these seasonal paintings that I painted, and I add those to my little collection, just to trade out the seasons. And then I have a couple of easels around the house. Right now I have, let's see, I have those snowmen because there's still a little snow around. So I still have a few snowmen around, and I have some hearts going out there too. You can fudge into the seasons a little bit with this time of year for the Valentine's and winter mix. And if you don't like how your lines look once you've painted this in, Sharpie works for that too. Come back in with a Sharpie and just make it look better. With a small brush, I'm not quite as in practice as I used to be. I used to sell ornaments at craft shows, and I had to personalize them. There's one period of time back in my history too that I personalized ribbons. So I was painting very, very small with a very, very small brush and white paint and doing personalizing a ribbon that ladies wore around their neck. Wonder if those will ever come back into fashion again. Let's see, some history about Valentine's. I do a children's program about Valentine's, and I learned by reading that. Did you know that little box of chocolates, the little heart-shaped box of chocolates, that dates back, if my memory serves me right, I believe that dates back to 1868. 1868, right after the Civil War, somebody decided to do that. Conversation hearts are also very old. Sometimes we think these are our modern traditions, and then we look and we find out they have their roots a little bit earlier. And I keep widening my branch as I come back to this edge of the canvas. Sometimes this just takes a little while. Gotta just be patient with yourself. Maybe take a break if you're having trouble concentrating that hard on it. Take a little break, come back to it. You can always just pause the video and then come back. Okay. Now let's see if I can do another one. Now if I dip my brush in the water, it might go smoother, but then also, remember what I said, it might also bleed a little bit at places you don't want it to. So it's just a balance. Sometimes it's better just to keep going. If you've got your brush loaded nicely and the paint's gliding, just keep going. Even if it's not quite as smooth as you want, you might see through, but sometimes that even looks like the texture of the bark. Now I'm going to have to go in like this because I've already got that other one done. Now, if you get yourself trapped in there and you don't want to do some of them on the inside, you've got the luxury of just, stopping and doing the blow dryer for a little while, or resting and coming back to it, and then just starting the video up. I'm trying to keep us going. I do want to thicken this up a bit. What I'm going to do is turn it over this way since I need to get these up. I should have, if you think back, on doing some of this, you should have done that first, but I wanted to get the birds on there. That's the most exciting part. if you like doing the simple paintings like this. There are a number of them on the YouTube channel. They're also in the art access spots in the YouTube. They have a number of other types of arts and learning about art. We have a really great library system with Mid-Continent. So many things to learn. My new phrase at this point in life is so many things to learn, so little time left. And it's fun for me when I see people that I actually know in person who paint these paintings, and they'll post them and they'll tell me about it. So I always love that. And I try to talk enough that it makes you feel like you're here with me. You know, there'd be more conversation on your side if we were together. It comes from many years of talking in the classroom, trying to keep a classroom full of children going. Okay, I'm going to turn this back around. And I'm really super excited that these days we aren't all caught up on that art has to be this, 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 and this. That we are more flexible with it. And that encourages more people who, you know, aren't pursuing the arts as a career to enjoy the arts. I remember years ago when I first came to Independence to teach, I taught, what was that year, like 80, 84, 85. And they had this policeman who came, and he was an artist. That was his hobby. He did some art shows and such, but that was his hobby. And I don't know, it was just kind of like at that point, it was really good for the kids, and I've talked about it a lot since, is, we can't all have a job in the arts, but it certainly can be a fun hobby that is just, I don't know, it has a different kind of release to emotions than some of the other things that you can do with your free time. It gives you a sense of accomplishment when you do it. And you can make some money on the side too. That's a possibility too if you like. Then I also read an article a number of years ago that one of the art teachers in Blue Springs shared with me, and that was how many jobs out in the world actually have to do with art, have to do with art design. I'm going to get a drink here. It's really interesting how art and art design weaves in to so many things in our life. All right. I'm going to get my blow dryer out again. know that it's totally all dry, but I think it's dry enough that I can start. Now I'm going to pick a small brush, one of my smaller ones here. You could also use on this, you could use a cotton swab. Sometimes I pull the cotton off the swab and I just have the sticks, or sometimes I use a pencil eraser. Those make a nice little size for a flower. So there's different ways that that could be done, especially if you don't have a small brush, you might want to try those. Or sometimes, you know, like if you have a child that's doing this with you, that might be an option for them. Oh, here's one of my favorite brushes. Look at it. Yes, I can hold it just right. I think I'm going to go with it. Now sometimes if the bristles are scattered out like that, I either lick my fingers and kind of bring them in before I dip it in the paint, or sometimes I'll even trim some of those. Okay. Move some brushes out of the way here. Sorry, it's taking me here a minute here to just kind of get my brush going like I want it to go. Because I want the right amount on there. I don't want too much, I don't want too little. I'm going to start over here. I guess I could actually turn it because it might look better in the camera if I turn it around now, because I'm just doing the flowers. Let's see if I can put it back where it was. And I'll start here and then come this way. So I always think about that, you know, start the furthest part away from you when you're doing something like this. Okay, let's see. You know, maybe I should, which sometimes I don't think about that, and then I go ahead with the other. I think I want green centers for those, so I'm going to do the green first here. After I loaded that white paintbrush up. You know, see, even I don't do it right. Sometimes I got to go back and think about it. It's all right. You just keep going down the road. All right, so I'm going to come and make a green dot. I'm just going to make the ones in this corner, because if I make them up here, I'll get it all over my hand as I'm working. Now you might think about this. Do you want those to be white? Do you want those to be pink? It needs to be a lighter pink probably, or it might blend too much into the red on those blossoms. Okay. I'm going to try the white out, because I can always add a little pink on there if I want to later. And I'm going to lay my brush down. So I'm not printing my brush from this direction, or I'm not painting. I'm laying it down like this and making a little leaf of those flowers. A little petal, I should say, I guess. Now I'm going to switch to a different brush because I don't have scissors right here on hand, and that brush has a little tail off of it. And I'm afraid I'm going to end up with that painted several places. Okay, this one should work. See, this is the part that's going to take a little bit. Now you could just make, those are more like close to a circle kind of shape, as opposed to what I had before. I might just go. And we know as we watch the blooming of flowers, depending on, you know, if they're like planted in the yard or they're in blossoms in a tree, they can take on just a little bit different shape. We'll do a little bit on the side there. Get a little bit too much paint on there. And you can count the petals if you want. That's, that's great if you want to do that. There again, I always think about what the professor at college said. As long as you get them close, you don't have to draw the whole brick wall, he would say. Just get a little section of it. They'll know the rest of it's brick. And you think about some of the drawings and paintings you've seen before where they did that. They just did a little section of it. Always your choice. One section down. Yes, yes, yes. Yes, yes, yes. Get up and stretch a bit. Step back from your painting and see how it's going. All right, I'm going to the green. Another thing that I do, and I've talked about it before, is once I do get these finished, I have piano in my kitchen area, just in the very edge of it. And I set these on the piano, and I look at them as I pass back and forth, because I'm always looking to see, did I get the design right? Did I get the design? I want to have a good design. I'm going to paint some of the green over here, so this gets just a touch to dry there before I go back. This is one of those things you could put tons of flowers on there. Makes me think of those cherry blossom trees. What was that country's name? I think it was Japan that gave those to us. Up in Washington, D.C. I've never been there when they were in bloom, but boy, have I seen some pretty pictures. I have a niece that lives there, and she says they are. Okay, it looks like I need to use the blow dry again. Always when I get a little too much paint on it, I don't like it quite as much. Sometimes if there's not quite as much paint, some of the colors from the background will show through, but it just looks a little bit more even and maybe a little bit closer to realistic. Dot, 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 dot. Oof, I'm getting tired of dots. Are you getting tired of dots? I'm getting tired of dots, but I'm not quite finished. I gotta keep going just a little longer. But we're gonna make it. We are. Timing's gonna just about be right. And then you can set it somewhere in your house and look at it and decide if maybe you want to add just a tad more to it. You like it is. You want to go back with a Sharpie and edge up some of the branches, or a pencil and kind of make the edges of the branches look a little more dimensional. It's all kinds of possibilities. Just excited that the world that we live in allows us the chance to have these types of supplies that are accessed. They were not very easily in my world when I was a child. We lived 3 hours from St. Louis, so 3 hours north of St. Louis and 3 hours south of St. Louis. So we're in the middle of Memphis and St. Louis. I might have said that wrong. Memphis and then St. Louis. So St. Louis was 3 hours north. Memphis was 3 hours south. And so you just didn't run down to the dime store and get paint there. Maybe some watercolor, but that's about it. My mother did let my sister and I take all the leftover paint in the house. One summer we painted our room, kind of like stained glass. All different colors. Mother drew all kinds of shapes around the room and we colored them in. And then I wanted to, my sister did some of it too, but we put plaques in. Plaster plaques were really big back then, at least in our family. And we would put plastered plaques in each of those little areas. All right. Now you could take a marker and you can kind of see the difference of the color of the paint as in the color of the marker, and that starts to make it look like some texture, which is kind of fun. Or like these tail feathers, you can add some of that in. Just got to be careful with it, because you can do like what I did just there. I went out a little bit of the lines that were already there, and I don't know that I want my bird that big, so I might go back over with some white paint here in a minute. Now, if you should touch a Sharpie to your paint before your paint's totally dry, it's not good. You need to wait till your paint's totally dry before you do that, or you'll mess your Sharpie up. See, I can kind of straighten some of these lines. And I'm glad that Sharpies don't smell so bad as those other markers. Those other permanent markers we used to have in the old days. They lasted forever. They smelled really bad. I don't know if anybody out there is old enough for that to bring back a smell to them. You could, if you wanted to add something different to this, you could add some green leaves along. It's more about the lovebirds and some branches around them. And the canvas is a little hard on the marker. I'm going to switch to the other one. Sometimes you have to let the marker rest, because that one, as you saw, has a point, but yet it still was having trouble with the canvas, so sometimes if you let them rest a bit, they'll come back around. Just make sure you get your lid on good. You can see how a combination of the markers and the markers and the paint can help that. And it might turn it into a mixed medium. Some people would say it does. It's all right. I like it better. Oh, and I was gonna white paint. Yep. That one little spot right there. And I do want to make it similar kind of lines that were already there, or it will show out a different way. Okay. All right. Well, I've shown you the basics of how to do this one. There's some more I could do to it. As you see, I straightened up these lines up here, but we're about to run out of time, so I'm not going to do the ones down here, but you see how that works. You could always go back in and add a little on some of these. A little pink got picked up in it. You could go back and put just a teeny bit of pink in those flowers if you wanted. Add leaves. I like the idea of, you know, adding some different family members in it. If you're into that and you like those kind of things, that could be an idea. So this is a wrap. This is Sarah Poff, the multimedia storyteller, just painting another painting.